In New York, March 2005, a disgruntled judge named Robert Restagno arrested an entire courtroom of 46 people because someone refused to silence their cell phone. When the jail cells became overly cramped, 14 of the occupants were shipped to another jail facility. Realizing that this was a pretty harsh sentence against a large group of people for the act of one individual, Restagno released everyone that same day. He later made the claim that he was suffering from personal stresses. A state commission then removed Restagno from his position. Though many of us can relate to the annoyance of a phone going off in any type of setting, the actions of Restagno may have gone a little too far, to say the least. Normally, when we imagine someone getting arrested, we assume that person has done something terrible. But sometimes the punishment doesn't quite fit the crime. So what are some of the biggest punishments for the smallest crimes around the world? Whether or not you think a crime is small can be a subjective matter. Sometimes, however, a punishment can seem a little more than too much for an act that's construed as minute by most people. Starting with the US, in February of 2014, a man named Ricky Joe Moore was feeling pretty hungry and decided to snag a delicious hot dog from a convenience store. Well, at least we hope it was delicious for his sake. Across most other states, pocketing small items such as a $1.49 hot dog would classify as a misdemeanor at the worst. In the state of Indiana, however, Ricky was arrested on a felony theft charge, facing prison time of 6 months and up to 3 years for his action. One odd aspect of this story, though, is that Ricky did apparently pay for a fountain drink while trying to sneak off with a hot dog. Hopefully it was worth the expense. Still, the American punishments are not as nearly bad as some of the other countries on this list. In the Central Asian country of Uzbekistan, for instance, you'd better be careful if you're behind the wheel of a car. If you're complaining about the fine for your speeding ticket, that's nothing compared to what you might be asked to do in this country. Any traffic violation here could land you a week of picking cotton to contribute to the country's harvesting operation. Your license will be temporarily suspended until your time servicing the fields has concluded. This may seem like a bizarre punishment for a mere traffic violation, but it's mild compared to some other punishments on this list. In Swaziland, a country in South Africa that's still ruled by a monarch, harsh corporal punishments take place in schools. We're not simply talking about a simple whack on the hand for poor behavior. Children can be severely beaten by teachers for not following directions. In 2015, a 17-year-old student was killed during one of these beatings when he suffered a seizure during a beating. The king of Swaziland argued against abolishing this punishment in schools, saying within the same year of 2015 that children need this and that continuing this practice will somehow help the country become a first world nation by 2020. If you're scratching your head over this logic, you're not alone. We thought it would also be interesting to mention that the king of Swaziland lives in luxury, with 15 wives and 25 children, while his people starve, just to add a little perspective to the situation. As related to corporal punishment in schools, the country of Zimbabwe has technically abolished it, but that doesn't mean that some people still don't use it. In 2017, there were reports of some school kids being hospitalized after their teacher beat them. Though the law has outlawed this practice since 2013, many still have trouble letting go of its use. Interestingly, in Malaysia, caning is a widespread form of punishment, but only for men. Women are spared from this pain unless they're Muslim. This is because Muslims have their own system for punishment here, which can include both men and women being caned or flogged. In case you were wondering about the difference between being caned or flogged, it really depends on whether a whip or a rod is used, but mostly these terms are used interchangeably, with the same meaning and used pretty loosely. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, flogging is also called whipping or caning. It's aimed with blows commonly directed to the person's back. Lashing is similarly a form of flagellation, but not surprisingly utilizes lashes as the tool of choice rather than rods or whips. Ouch! We imagine that the pain and anguish of one of these beatings would be too awful to endure. Speaking of being lashed, though, in Indonesia on October of 2016, a young Muslim woman received 23 lashes simply for standing too close to her boyfriend. Do you think this is just a little overly harsh? We'll let you decide for yourself. In Iran, public floggings are a regular occurrence and part of the judicial system. Floggings can be administered against those who have committed serious offenses such as murders and rapes, but can also be targeted against less serious offenses, like eating during Ramadan, premarital intercourse, or even drinking alcohol. Yeah, you may want to rethink that cup of beer if you ever find yourself here. Worse than beatings, in Saudi Arabia, it may come as no surprise that there are many offenses that can lead to public executions. In 2016, there were 150 public beheadings. On the first day of 2019, the country saw 3 public executions. So what crimes can get you beheaded here exactly? Well, for one, Sharia law reigns supreme here, so being associated with the LGBT community can land you in a world of trouble. Even if you have proven yourself to be a lifelong heterosexual, just the mere proximity of being around LGBT activity can be dangerous. Being associated with homosexuality, even if you're not a homosexual, could be life-threatening. In 2018, a group of men were arrested for being in a video where a gay wedding was allegedly being held. The men seemed surprised by the event and may have simply been just spectators, not actually involved in the making of the video at all. Nevertheless, they were arrested. Does this seem harsh to you? Well, that isn't even the worst of it. In Brunei, a country in Southeast Asia, like Saudi Arabia, it's illegal to be gay or lesbian. But here, instead of a quick beheading, you're more likely to be stoned to death for association. This, arguably, is much worse. Imagine being hit by one heavy rock after the next without pause to take a breath. After a few hits, your battered and bruised self would probably wish you were being beheaded by a sword instead of having your skull smashed into pieces by a flying stone. Maybe you're thinking that being flogged, caned, or lashed isn't so bad now. But what about the punishments for doing nothing bad at all? In North Korea, as we've mentioned in our past video, everything we know about the horrific North Korean labor camps, you can inadvertently be punished for a crime you did not commit. The 3 generations rule says that if you commit a crime and receive punishment, the punishment applies to your children and grandchildren as well. So if your mom, dad, or even grandparent is convicted of a crime, you could spend your life in prison as well. Do you think these punishments fit their crimes? Which do you think is the worst? Is there something we missed on this list? Let us know in the comments. Also, be sure to check out our other video, The Catherine Wheel, Worst Punishments in the History of Mankind. Thanks for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.